I want you to stop for just a second. Put down what you're doing, because what you're about to hear tonight is not a theory. It's not speculation. It's not a belief system. It is on film. 30 people, 10 days in a desert, no scripts, no stagecraft, no government permission, just human beings using consciousness, intention, and an open heart reaching out to the cosmos, and something reached back on camera. My guest tonight has been threatened by generals, offered $2 billion to go silent, has sat across from some of the most powerful and most dangerous people on Earth, and every single time he said no, because he knows something. He knows we are not alone. He knows contact isn't coming, it's already here. And he knows that the forces don't want you to know that they will do anything they can to keep it quiet. But tonight, that changes. Tonight, Dr. Stephen Greer, founder of the Disclosure Project, pioneer of CE5 contact, and the man who may become the most important figure in the history of modern science, is here with a special announcement. Not a theory, an announcement. And I promise you, whether you're a skeptic, a believer, or somewhere in the middle, by the end of tonight, something inside of you will shift. Because this isn't a story about ETs. This is a story about us, about what we're capable of, about the future we were always meant to have. So welcome back to the show, Dr. Greer. Are you ready to shine?
Yeah, let's do it, babe. Yeah.
Woohoo! All right, let's dive into things.
Sure.
You have actual footage. I watched this in your most recent documentary. Ships appearing on camera, coming in and out of camera, captured by your team in real time. So let's start right here. Tell us exactly what's happening.
Well, what we're doing is the Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind contact protocols. We call it CE5 for short. And a Close Encounter of the Fifth Kind is when humans initiate the contact with extraterrestrial people and spacecraft and civilizations. This began in my own life when I was 18 in 1973, dating myself here, but now we have put it into a program so that everyone on Earth can become a citizen ambassador from humanity to these civilizations. And this is very important right now because we're on the eve of disclosure events coming out of Washington that could go any which way. So what a CE5 is, we call it CE5 for short. There's an app called CE5 Contact that you can get, and it's a whole training program that will take you through all the steps that we'll unpack tonight. But essentially, it's using the advanced concepts in consciousness to see remote places. It's been called remote viewing. Make contact with the ET civilizations, both innately in consciousness, but also through their technologies. And then invite them and guide them into your precise location, wherever you are. So there are those steps that you go through. That's just a broad picture of it from 50,000 feet. But the central operating concept is the mind whereby you're hearing me and I'm hearing you. While we're unique individuals, the mind itself is a singularity. It's one. And so once you understand that at a physics level, but also at a personal enlightenment level, that are moving through the vastness of space, they have to communicate using technologies that are interfacing with something in the non-local quantum entangled universe. And the most quantumly entangled field is consciousness, pure mind, or the samadhi state, it used to be called. So we have formalized that into a set of techniques. And we took a group of people out in the desert, and as a training, they were all new people, except my senior team. And in this documentary that just came out, CE5, the new frontier of contact, you'll see what happened. Now, it's only about an hour and 10 minutes, and it sort of takes you through a whole tutorial of what we do and how we set up and how we prepare. But there's a lot to unpack in that. And I think that what people need to realize is that the intelligence community has known that this works for a very long time.
Yeah.
And it's been kept secret. Ancient people, native people knew this worked. Aboriginals in Australia, my grandmother was full Cherokee. They call them the people from the stars, the Stark people. So this is not something new. It is something, however, we now need to put into the modern context and understand how that's happening beyond the mythology. And there is a science to this. very deep science.
So I want to go into each piece of this. We're definitely going to go into C5 and some of the protocol. We're going to go into ancient civilizations and how they've done this. We're going to even go into the Black Flag event. But I want to go current day-ish, if I can.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Every civilization, you say, and this is what I've got in all of my channeling, and I wouldn't call it remote viewing, but in all of the work that I do, I've gotten this as well. That every civilization that has achieved interstellar or transdimensional travel, they've had to overcome certain things. And I'm wondering both what they've had to overcome to get here or to get to that stage. And it is my understanding, and yours as well, that they had to pass this point that we are in the middle of complete and total almost obliteration with ourselves now. They had to move past that stage of violence to be able to handle technologies not even a fraction of what they're using now.
Right, and that's the back in the 90s, early 90s, I wrote a whole thesis about the evolutionary selection of non-hostility in intelligent civilizations. Now, what do I mean? It means that if you're still rooted in sort of a primitive, warlike mentality, when you hit the nuclear level of technology, and then beyond that, things that are beyond the speed of light, and you're still in that consciousness, you're going to destroy yourselves long before you ever get out of your solar system. And this is how we knew that the ones that are visiting from other star systems are not hostile, because if they still had that consciousness, they would be obliterated, and they would obliterate each other long before they could get here. The vice versa is true. You know, a civilization like ours, that's an emerging civilization, trying to come out of our infancy into the adolescence we're in now, a rambunctious wildness with all the hormones flowing. We're going to have to go from that to the maturity of humanity, the hallmark of which is not just world peace, but universal peace. But that peace is not going to be founded in humanism, because now we're dealing with non-human species. It's got to be founded in something deeper. And that deeper is the understanding that the consciousness within all sentient life is one. It's a singularity. And it's within us, it's within them. And so there is no us and them. It's us, it's we all together. So I think this understanding is not only philosophically essential, but it's operationally essential. Because if you stay in the consciousness of separation, you're never going to be able to go anywhere beyond where we are now.
So that begets, thank you, that begets a very important question. I'm kind of jumping ahead here. But there are so many people who are going to be here in the chat tonight or watching this afterwards who say, well, but what about abductions? And what about what we've seen? And what about what we've heard? And what about everything that we've been taught about? You know, it's the Palladians or it's these, and you've got to watch out for God knows what.
Right. Yeah, well, that's the psyops of the CIA that began in the 50s. So we have documentation as well as whistleblowers that I've debriefed. And remember, I have over 750 some whistleblowers who've been in covert programs that I have debriefed and gained their information, documents, what have you. And a program began in the 1950s to convince people that there was a threat from outer space when they knew there wasn't one. And the CIA director at that time, William Bedell Smith, concluded, and I'm quoting, we have this document in our archive if you wish to look at it, that the psychological warfare value of UFOs should be exploited. Now, what he meant by that is very much the same as what the CIA document from 1985 that Dr. Jacques Vallée admits he has, but is too scared to publish. And that is that the CIA was running abduction programs in Latin America. This is a 1985 CIA document that states point blank that they were doing abductions of, their words, not mine, peasants in Brazil and Argentina for its, quote, psychological warfare value, making them think they were being tortured and abducted by aliens. Now, why would such a program have been launched? Because ultimately, the misanthropic and sociopathic people who ran those illegal covert programs, they want to take our current world civilization where we're fighting each other, right? And stop that, but have us fight other planets. They want to expand the war machine so that the world is united, not in peace, but in a dystopia of military or, sort of totalitarianism. And that is what the plan has been since 1953, 54. Now, so there is a very concerted, well thought through uh, technologies, a whole bunch of technologies that have been used to simulate alien contact. So therefore, 80, 90% of everything out there on this subject has been put into the system as a disinformation uh, event to try to convince people there's a threat. And that is what you have to do to create an enemy. You have to psychologically convince a population that there are people you have to hate. So they realized that this could be exploited in the 50s. And by the late 1950s, this is something most people are shocked to hear.
Yeah.
That by the late 1950s, we had already built UFOs by man-made technology that simulated an ET extraterrestrial spacecraft. And this was done through huge breakthroughs between the mid 40s and the mid 50s on studying recovered extraterrestrial vehicles. Those devices were then turned into man-made UFOs that had people on board, and then later robotic creatures that look like grays and what have you,
Yeah.
to abduct people. Now, the same thing with the cattle mutilations. Those began experimenting with those in the 60s. They did all kinds of, initially, it was a horse, Snippy the horse,
Wow.
in Colorado, and I think 67. And I know the doctor, medical doctor, who was called to examine that horse. He's passed away, Dr. John Altshuler, is a friend of mine, wonderful man. And he said immediately concluded it was a covert human operation made to look alien using very advanced technology. Now, by the late 60s, by the time we landed on the moon,
Yeah.
we already had man-made craft that had gone out there, but this was in a covert program. And I think this has gotten so out of control that people who look into this issue, and I'm including now presidents, CI directors, congressmen, senators, what have you, they are first going to stumble across this big, huge black hole of staged disinformation. And then they may never escape from that black hole. It may just keep them there.
Yeah.
And that's one of the big risks of this subject coming out right now, is that the populace has been brainwashed into a threat that is non-existent, and it's been created by very advanced technologies that are controlled by men, humans. And, I've mentioned this before. My uncle worked for Northrop Grumman his entire career and was on the team that helped design the lunar module, put the first man on the moon. Right. So I had heard about these things since I was 8, 9 years old. And now that was when I was in 1963, 4. Now we're at 2026. Okay. And imagine what the technologies have evolved into now that can falsify an alien threat. Now, you would think that the president or the secretary of defense, or they call him now the secretary of war, would be read into this or briefed on it. They're not. And I think they're beginning to find out now, which is why the president has ordered Mr. Hegstead, the Secretary of War, to get to the bottom of it and issue a public report. The problem is they're going to come up with goose eggs or disinformation unless they utilize some back channels that we've created. So that's one of the big tasks we have ahead of us. Now, with all that madness going on, and never mind war in the Middle East, we also have to figure out, how do we stand up a response as all this begins to get officially acknowledged to the public? And that's happening from humans. That's a peaceful response, an enlightened response, so that the warmongers and the liars and the disinformation experts don't dominate the whole dialogue. It's a daunting task, because I will tell you, we are very much in the minority in understanding this. And the public has had, unfortunately, the media, Hollywood, and the internet, and these covert programs have had a 70-year run of staging false events and brainwashing the populace. So now we're going to have to come out with the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, which they do not want you to know. I will tell you that right now. They want you to know a partial truth. They want you to know we're not alone, but then they want to go like snip that but they're a threat to us, and we need more trillions of your dollars to fight them. That's what they want. I'll make it simple for people, and they already have all that brainwashing cooked into our culture, and so we have to. I love that group In Vogue with the free your mind, when they hear the free your mind, you got to free your mind of
Yeah.
this nonsense. But it's very hard to do that because humans like to be frightened. They like to have an enemy. We like to have someone that we think we're superior to. And then you cross over into the religious nuts who are now saying that the aliens are the agents of Satan. That's all over the internet now. So God help us. Now they want a holy war in space. So, this gets nuttier and nuttier and nuttier, but we're talking people who are very close to the White House and members of Congress that have been brainwashed with that absurd myth.
So uh, I really want to go into what's going on in the Middle East and how that's viewed from a different lens. Before I do that, though, I want to go to Hollywood for a second, because you had talked about years ago when you
Yeah.
were on here, you had talked about Close Encounters of the Third Kind actually being more of a
Mm-hmm.
documentary, but now there's a movie coming out. I'm not sure if it was a Spielberg movie or not. That's going to be
Mm-hmm.
another one of these. I'm going to call it a holy war of us versus then survival of the planet. We must
Yeah.
kill all the ETs. Where is the funding come from in Hollywood that pumps out? I can't find positive movies about
Mm-hmm.
extraterrestrials, and I've looked and I've looked and I've looked. In fact, maybe a really bad B-rated movie, but
Right.
it is the line of every movie that it's us versus them.
And the video games and the internet and UFO conferences and books and what have you. Now, look, this has gone from Steven Spielberg doing Close Encounters of the Third Kind and E.T. to him being turned into doing the one that's coming out, which
Yeah.
he has used. The word that I coined, disclosure, is the title of that new
Oh,
uh,
wow.
that movie, and it's going to be terrifying. I think I haven't seen it. I've only seen the trailer. So, and then you just had a documentary called Age of Disclosure, which also presents this as a threat and covers up the fact that all the things that have been threatening are things that have been staged by covert programs from the aerospace and the corporate world and a few cells, very tightly compartmented cells in the Pentagon and CIA and elsewhere. So now the money, I know some very big Hollywood figures. We're talking people who've done multi-billion-dollar projects.
Yeah.
And every time they've tried to do the true story of this in the last few years with me, they get shot down. The funding gets cut off. And so I think people are also very naive in thinking that the corporate nexus is clean. For example, the biggest asset manager in the world is BlackRock. BlackRock is an asset of the CIA. It is. And even though they give lip service to the environment and a DEI and
Wars.
very progressive ideas, they're actually, that's the mask they let the public see. And not everyone at BlackRock, but they have assets in key places. And this is why the big media corporations and the big podcasters, once they get to a certain numbers
Yeah.
of views, will not allow anyone to speak the truth on their program. I can prove this. So this is another problem. And thank God for people like you, Michael, who will allow the truth to come out. But in reality, there's a lock on the new media, the internet, podcast media, as badly as there is in the legacy media of CBS 60 Minutes or CNN or what have you, or Fox or any of them. Now, I'll give you an example that happened the last couple of years.
Yeah.
There's a Navy SEAL named Sean Ryan that had me on his show, along with a couple of my whistleblowers after me, and they got huge numbers. And because of that, I have a voicemail from him. He left saying that my family and my entire staff have been threatened, and I cannot have you on the show anymore. And within months, he had people like Colonel John Alexander and other people who are the warmongers and disinformation operatives on his program, and we had to be blacklisted. The same thing happened with Joe Rogan. I was on his show in 2012, 2013. That show I did with Joe Rogan, in order for him to get his $100 million from Spotify years ago, they had to take that out of the lineup. And since then, he has only featured approved disinformation operatives on the Joe Rogan show. Fact. Avi Loeb, Lou Elizondo, others. So if you tell the partial truth, there are aliens out there. NHI is the term now, non-human intelligence, which is, of course, a meaningless term. There are all kinds of intelligences that are non-human, including dolphins, whales, etc. I mean, it's a stupid word, but that's what they're using. And they also are mixing into that the angels, demons, and things from other dimensions.
I've been hearing.
So they're deliberately doing this. So it's obfuscating, it's confusing, and it's done deliberately. This is how the intelligence operations run. But this is a real problem because now we're at this inflection point where the work we've done for 30 years on disclosure is now reaching a crescendo. And if this goes the wrong way, it's the end of human civilization. If it goes the correct way and the truth is told, and the public has this confirmed, but it's also confirmed that there have been disinformation programs that have put out false information about the extraterrestrial presence, then that and that we're now going to pivot to beginning to bring out the technologies that'll save the biosphere as well as make peaceful contact with them, then it's a whole new world, right? So this can go two ways, and God help us. I'm working literally 7 days a week, 18 hours a day, trying to get this in the right direction. But we are the minority. We're a very tiny David against a huge Goliath, and I will admit that. And yet, I know that the universe and higher consciousness is on our side, and the truth is on our side, by the way. And so we have to just stay with that and keep going forward.
Thank you. And I would say that I don't even like the term ET. I don't know. Please enlighten me on a better term here in a minute. But those who are, and it may be us, interdimensionally, transdimensionally from other times, from other places, but those who are around us are supporting and protecting us too. In fact, right now we've got obviously this devastating war in the Middle East, and it's horrific. But you've said that ET civilizations have actually disabled nuclear missiles, and they're watching our systems right now, our weapons, with deep concerns. What do they know about what's going on while they're looking at the Earth that we don't know? And forgive me, what are they thinking right now?
Well, I mean, they know that we're in a very perilous period, and people have these fantasies that they're going to intervene openly. They will not openly intervene until it's catastrophic situation here. I mean, something way worse than World War II, something that would be threatening the Earth itself and civilization on Earth. So, and that's just part of the mandate. We know what it is. And let me get the nomenclature and the words down straight because people are fuzzy.
Yes.
There are extraterrestrial biological entities. These are life forms from other systems and planets that travel from one place to another in the universe, not in a straight line. But, you know, if space is like a piece of paper, you bend the piece of paper and you're here. But you're actually going through other dimensions. So they transit dimensions, but they don't originate from another dimension. Now, there are beings that originate from another dimension. Those are extra-dimensional or interdimensional beings. They don't need a spacecraft. And it's funny, I was at the Vatican back during the reign of Pope John Paul, and his senior theologian, Monsignor Balducci, and I were talking about this. And I was talking about how even then and before, people were conflating the EBENs, the extraterrestrial civilizations and people, with angels and demons. And he laughed. He says, neither angels nor demons nor beings from other dimensions require a flying saucer. And he just laughed out loud. Now, by the way, his special area of theology was demonology. I'm not kidding.
Wow.
And so he was the expert at the Vatican on that. And so we had this whole conversation about how that's deliberately been all kind of mixed together to confuse people. So I try to be very precise. I'm talking about extraterrestrial civilizations, EBENs, extraterrestrial biological entities is what they're called, from other star systems and planets. This is not to say there are not beings from other dimensions. There are. The good, the bad, the ugly, the higher, the lower. And then there's the human factor. And one more thing, covert electromagnetic programs can do a sort of puncture into a parallel other dimension and bring those creatures into this dimension.
What?
So this is, people's eyes are going to glaze over, but this gets even more confusing because then they can bring something in that becomes 3D from another dimension and set it loose, and people think it's alien. Well, it is alien in the sense it's foreign, alien foreign, but it's not extraterrestrial biological entity. So this is the kind of complexity of the problem. We've let this, let's say, bunch of mad scientists combined with a bunch of sociopaths, and some of them are psychopaths who kept this secret for 80 years, too long. And, you know, I remember talking to Senator Barry Goldwater about this in the 90s. And, you know, he said, look, it was a goddamn mistake then, and it's a goddamn mistake now that this was ever kept secret. But as the senior senator in the Republican Party and who ran for president in 1964 against Lyndon Johnson, he told me he was never read in on this. And when he tried to find out about it, he was threatened. Now, I'm sitting at his home in Paradise Valley in Scottsdale, Arizona.
Yeah.
So, look, I have met with hundreds and hundreds, more than 1,000 people like this. And so what you find is the general public, through the media and Hollywood that they have access to, have very little factual information and a lot of mythology that's disinformation. So we have to be very careful. And I think we sort of have to free our minds from everything we think we know and kind of start over. And that's what I had to do in the 90s. You know, in the early 90s, when I started this project, I started the whole CE5 contact effort in 1990 as a young doctor, medical doctor. I was 34, now I'll be 71 in June. I started the project to give humans the tools to be peace ambassadors from Earth to those civilizations, but I knew no one was doing it. Now, what's happened is that over these years, I came to realize that there's so much infrastructure and brainwashing that's out there, and that the people who I thought ran the government of your country, my country, all over the world, actually don't. Not on this issue. Yeah. I mean, they're sort of kept aside. That's why President Obama a couple weeks ago said, yeah, I know the aliens exist, but I was never given the information to know anything directly. And he was not lying. He was telling the truth. And of course, you know, most people thought that he had to backtrack that and walk it back because President Trump kind of threatened him. But you know, with having violated classification issues, which he didn't, because let me unpack this for people who are listening.
Thanks.
President Obama had received the briefing. So here's the briefing document for the current president and senior members of the Congress. You can go to drstephengreer.com and get it right now. Now, it's what you can get. The public has redacted somewhat. It has certain tactical and names and what have taken out. But it is the first time I've made it available to the public because I think it's time for people to see what the current president, but also past presidents have received, starting all the way back to Bill Clinton. Now, the problem is when he said, I know that they exist, it was because of what we provided, the Disclosure Project. But through channels, let's say the Office of the President, nada. And this is what most people cannot believe, that there would be a criminal and treasonous organization, and it's not just U.S., it's global, that would do that and be committing a breach of the chain of command. But I'm afraid to tell people, wake up, that is the way it's been run since the late 1950s. So about 1957, 8 is when President Eisenhower lost control of these operations. So I think this is what we need to understand, is that there's a lot of issues here. It's so complex. It's like playing chess in 38 dimensions, I call it. But when the day is done, we the people have to know the truth, and we the people have to take action. And the most empowering thing anyone can do is to say, okay, this is a sticky wicket of madness, but I'm a conscious living person and a denizen of not just Earth, of the universe. And I'm a conscious, awake being, and within my own self all the tools I need exist for me to be an ambassador and make contact with these other civilizations. Now, might you also, while you're doing that, bump into beings from other dimensions? Yes, you might bump into your great grandmother, but to be blunt, but or one time when I was here, I'm down the road from Thomas Jefferson's house, Monticello. He popped in
Cool.
right here where I'm standing in my living room. I'm not kidding. This sounds crazy, but it's true because we think everything is separated. It's all integrated in a conscious quantum hologram. It's all, it's the ultimate quantum entangled cosmos where every point in space and time is connected, but so are all dimensions and all beings and all consciousness. And it's a profoundly beautiful understanding of the cosmos we're in. But of course, people they want to keep everyone, ignorant, divided, and at each other's throats, right? This is the whole point. This is why we've been in endless wars over really minor issues like religion, ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender, male, female, black, white, brown. Come on. I mean, this nonsense should have stopped way back in the 50s
Yeah.
or 60s because we should have known about this and said, we're all one human species, but there are other species out there, and they're also people like we are. It's just they're genetically and their origins are different,
Yeah.
but inside, deeply in here, we're one. It's the consciousness, pure consciousness.
So, in that pure consciousness, the ETs that are watching us right now, you're
Yep.
saying they can't interfere.
Oh, they can.
What?
They're wiser than that. Okay, let
Thank
me.
you.
You brought this up before. How well did the misadventure known as Afghanistan work out for the United States and its allies? 20 some years of bloodbath,
Yeah.
hundreds of thousands of people dead, over $2 trillion spent by the United States. And then it's right back with a 7th century feudal warlord system that it was when we went in. If you're an external power,
Yeah.
and you go in and try to impose your culture on one that isn't ready from inside, it will never work, right? And that we have got a lot. And so these civilizations have been around for thousands, and in some cases, millions of years longer than humans have been. They know that a people like ourselves and all peoples have to evolve through the school of hard knocks. I call Earth, the schoolhouse, and it's the
Are
school
we
of
a
hard
rougher
knocks.
schoolhouse?
Yeah. Well, I think there are all variations out there in the cosmos. I think there's every level. But Homo sapiens are 98% genetically identical to chimpanzees
Yeah.
who have been known to organize into troops and engage in organized warfare and organized murder. Dolphins don't, dogs don't. And so we know there are other civilizations out there that don't even have a concept of murder
Yeah.
or war. Now we do, and I'm sure others have. But you don't get past where we are now and go out in space or even survive on our own planet by living in that backward, primitive, retrograde awareness. And at some point, we have to accept the fact we need to have peace on Earth, peace in space, and that is the basis for that. Ultimately, is deep within ourselves. It's sort of a spiritual peace, although it may not be necessarily religious or theological. I think this is the biggest challenge we're facing. Now, other civilizations that have come this way before us know if they were to come in here and just make everything right for us, we'd be back right where we were, just like Afghanistan is just back where it was. So this is not a solution. Now, do they monitor everything going on? Of course. Are they aware of the perils? Of course. Do they know that worlds like ours have come and gone, entire civilizations? Yes. There's no guarantee that Homo sapiens, humans, necessarily will continue in its current form. We could blow the whole system up. Now, this is why I call this the choice. We humans have free will. There's a choice to be made individually. Each of us make choices every day, collectively. And so this is another one of the powers of meditating together and doing CE5 contact. It creates this collective consciousness that affects people who are nowhere near us in ways that are now been studied scientifically, and we understand scientifically this non-locality, this propagation effect in positive higher consciousness.
Let's play with this for a minute.
So that's what they want us to do. That's what they want us to do.
Thank you. I have so many questions, technology, black flag, all of these things, but I do a lot of group meditations. And
Yep.
of us all syncing up and getting into this energetic field or state together.
Yes.
Here's a really wild, trippy question that I've never thought of, or concept, which is you're getting into this field, you're getting into the state. We can call it whatever we want.
Yes.
They're in that state waiting for us too and helping to hold space in that state. And we just may feel it as love or goodness or whatever.
Sure.
They may be quiet off in the corner like a monk off in the corner of a cave, but they're helping hold space, aren't they?
Well, they are. And you know, the reason the Earth is in the condition it's in terms of still in its orbit is because they have protected us. And when we've gotten close to DEFCON 1, Defense Condition 1, which is a thermonuclear launch, there have been some accidents, let's say, that have happened that they have intervened kind of quietly
Cuba,
to be sure
things
that
like
doesn't
that.
happen. Oh, way beyond that. I mean, for example, if you look at our archive, you'll see we have a Soviet general who testified that at one point there was a intercontinental ballistic missile in the Soviet Union overheating that was gone undetected. And the ETs came in with a spacecraft, and they came in and put everyone in that area in sort of a suspended animation and went in and fixed this missile and left so it didn't blow up. So this has happened. So there are certain things that have happened where they've sort of saved our bacon.
Yeah.
But, you know, in terms of just coming in and finishing all the wars we have, and, you know, they're not going to just land and force that. It's, you know what it is? It's your job and my job and everyone's listening job to learn the truth about this and teach each other mind to mind, heart to heart. And that's how humans evolve together. They don't evolve by some force from outside forcing it.
Thank you.
So remember, there was a book written, Force is the Inverse of Power. So force is a weakness. If you force it, power comes from within. And so we have to step into that power. Now, these very advanced civilizations know that. At the same time, they're not just Pollyanna ninnies. They have contingency plans. For example, one of the dangers of the current moment is that you have covert human programs that have technologies that have reached parity, almost as good as the extraterrestrial ones. And those have been used to target and destroy extraterrestrial craft and attempted to target assets in space and beyond.
Is that
so
why when
now,
forgive me, is that why when we watch your documentary, you see alien craft? It's wild and it's almost popping in the sky like fireworks. But as soon as they say hi, they're the hell out of town.
Yeah, and remember, everyone thinks the Roswell crash was, you know, they couldn't navigate through a thunderstorm. Oh, I got news for people. I'm friends with airline pilots and captains for American Airlines who navigate through thunderstorms all the time and don't crash.
Yeah.
You're not so sophisticated that you're coming from another star system and can't fly over New Mexico. So I think that the issue is, even then, we have an FBI document that states this. They had put in a new radar dome that had within it not just radar, but an active electromagnetic weapon at Roswell in 1947. And that's how those objects, three of them, came down. Two initially, and then one was found in the early 50s back in a remote area. And so what you begin to realize is that a couple years ago, 2.5 years ago, I was at a covert site. I won't say where, in the United States, in a helicopter by one of the top secret guys who operate them. And we were right over the site, and I have images of the devices, the electromagnetic pulse weapons that are used to target and down ET craft. Now, I quickly gave that to Senate Intelligence Committee investigators and others. And then about 3 weeks later, as you know, I was almost killed, but critically injured. But I think that, which is fine, make my day and take me off this planet. I'm just joking. But
Cancel, clear, release.
yeah, I mean, adios, amigos. I died when I was 17. I'm not afraid of death. But I think that the issue becomes what has happened from the 40s to now in terms of our weapon systems and our electronic systems. And when we're doing CE5, I always say if you get the app, the CE5 Contact, it's called app, in the App Store, it goes through this whole process. And one of the things that's clear in each of the meditations and in each of our expeditions where we go out and invite these civilizations to come in, we say appear in any way that is safe and appropriate for this time and place and this group. Okay, because above all, do no harm. I'm a medical doctor, trauma guy, and you don't want to do harm. You don't want to harm your team. You don't want them to be killed. And I'm very aware that in space and in the air and on land and on the sea, we have these weapon systems and monitoring systems. So we're doing CE5 contact within the milieu, the environment of a very hostile theater of operations known as Earth that has become, unfortunately, an armed camp, and not just in the United States. All over the globe, we have these systems, and in space on these very advanced satellites. So I tell people, you want them to come in any way that's safe for everyone. But remember, they can come in and blip into 3D and then immediately disappear, but they're still there. They're there in another dimension that we can't strike. Now what I just said, that is the deep part of this, because you can see often we'll be out there and with the naked eye, the object vanishes. But then you begin to see, and it's almost like a subtle hologram or a subtle energy field that's the shape of a craft or a person right there in the field in front of you. Now, what's amazing is some of our cameras we have now, we've adjusted the settings so that we can photograph or film them in that state. And so few of these images are in this film, but a lot of them are in our archive. And of course, the old film, Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, has some as well, if people want to see that on Tubi, or Amazon.
It reminds me of Star Trek when they came to Earth and got the whale of the craft
right.
that was invisible, but it was kind of shimmery in a sense. All right. I want to go with a chicken.
Or like the end of the end. Here's a good image for people.
Yeah.
Remember that old movie Contact that was, that was
Ellie.
Okay. And Carl Sagan, wrote the book, but he died before the ending. And the ending of it is very transdimensional. That he would have never approved. That was the screenwriter who did that had followed my work and put that in the movie. Whoa. Look at the end of that. So it's almost like a dreamlike state where you have the physical and then the so-called astral or etheric coming together.
Yeah.
And that is what we're doing with this. Okay. It's very beautiful, and it's very advanced concepts in science. It is science, but it begins to cross over into information that has been embedded within human civilizations before we had science. Like I mentioned before, Native American, Aboriginal, Celtic, all civilizations had some understanding of the star people and ways that they would see them and what have you. Now what we're trying to do is relate that to the modern scientific era, where we bridge between the areas of consciousness and spirituality into the 3D world of science. And there's no separation here except the construct in our own head, our minds. So that's where we have to broaden our minds and have the understanding of this in a very profound and different way than currently exists.
Thank you. And when I think of the movie Contact, I think of the one line that sticks out to me is baby steps, Ellie. We are taking baby steps toward, it actually begets a chicken and the egg question.
Yes, right.
You have talked about, and you have a documentary on the lost century. And how if free energy was out there, if the technologies are out there that exist, that are already here, and I would be shocked if finally somehow AI doesn't suddenly say, "Oh, here it is." And one day somebody somehow stumbles across it. It's here. People have disappeared because of it. I've
Oh yeah.
known people to disappear because of it. I think many of us have. Is part of the reason that it hasn't come forward yet, or that hasn't been, that it's still hidden from us, is part of it the evolution of consciousness that we're not ready to handle free energy?
That isn't quite it. It's because if you were to, when they acknowledge, and they're beginning to acknowledge that the quote UFOs are real and blah, blah, the first thing any scientist is going to ask, well, how the heck are they operating? And guess what? We have those answers. So then it's, like the REM song, it's the end of the world as we know it. Because now you're talking about doing this quantum leap from the 1800s, which is where we are now: oil, gas, electric lines, gasoline cars, even on a electric battery car that you plug into the grid. Where's that energy coming from? Oil and gas and coal, and maybe 12% renewable. So in reality, our civilization is functioning in a technological energy paradigm from the 1800s, literally.
Yeah.
If you count nuclear power, mid 1940s, 1945, 50. So there is a big leap we need to take to go forward, but it can't be all at once. Again, baby steps. So in our briefing, which I mentioned, and in the executive orders that I recommended to the president, that was given directly to him, put in his hands. One of them was that there should be a truthful disclosure of the issue, but then a gradual release of the technologies commensurate with the development of our civilization peacefully. So let me give you an example.
Please.
Something that would sit on this table that would run my house with 0-point quantum vacuum energy, that should be out and should have been out 100 years ago. Tesla had something similar. Now, the things that fly, that's a missile delivery system. So imagine every unstable regime or terrorist in the world being able to deliver from Mogadishu or somewhere in the Middle East a dirty bomb over Washington or Toronto or Hong Kong in 2 or 3 seconds, not minutes. Not an ICBM that takes 20 minutes. So that technology is different, and there are valid national security concerns attendant to that. They should come out eventually, but there's a lot of work we have to do for collective global peace with teeth, not just kumbaya, but where there is a collective agreement that these advanced technologies cannot ever and will never be used for anything but peaceful benefit to humanity. But it has to be enforceable, because there are always going to be sociopathic leaders and religious fanatics and the next Hitler or the next Pol Pot or the next, I hate to say it, Dick Cheney. So in reality, you've got to be very careful. And then there's the next level of technologies. I could take you through a dozen levels. And then those are the ones that are transdimensional: teleportation, all this. And within that basket of technologies, early on, there should be the release of the medical ones. And what do I mean?
You.
All right. There is extraordinary capabilities that are scientific, technological, that are not out there, that have been kept secret, because to disclose them would also disclose the physics of these energy systems. They're like this. They're two sides of a coin. And so once we can make that happen, you're going to see such a transformation in healing and health and cancer and all of this, even the regeneration of severed limbs. I was at a lab where they had technologies where they could attach that phantom pain, it's the astral body, and regrow a limb or regrow a spinal cord. But that technology, as wonderful as it is, opens the same doorway to things that would terminate oil. And I was on a show of someone who's very good friends with the president last year. He says, well, we can never let those technologies out because it's thousands, $1 trillion in oil assets and coal. I said, Yeah, we can. Because if we got it out today,
Yeah.
it would take 15 to 20 years to build the systems out to run the planet. I'm not even sure we have that long. So I said, no, it needs to happen. And the people who've had a 200-year ride raping the planet and making trillions of dollars, you've had enough. You've had your ride. Now it's time for a new civilization that's peaceful and clean, and we can heal the earth and liberate all of humanity from poverty. When I say all of humanity will be free of poverty within one generation, I mean it. And that's the potential and the power of disclosure, but it's got to be done wisely. And you need wise people guiding that process. So that's what we're trying to do for the Congress and other leaders and people in Canada, United Kingdom, other places. But we need other people helping us articulate this.
Thank you. So we're going to go into a little bit some of the nuts and bolts of CE5 in just a little bit.
Yes,
I'm
great.
curious. We talked about, and you talked about it at the beginning, false flag events. What do
Yeah.
we have? Well, I guess what would that look like, or what are the potential of that look
Mm-hmm.
like? How
Mm-hmm.
close are we, and what can we do as individuals to help as best as we can? Because this is a choice of the entire collective, but as best as we can
Great question.
to
Yeah.
shift this.
Okay. There's a wonderful saying from the Vedas: knowledge is the greatest purifier.
Yeah.
Knowledge, knowledge. So if people know that there is an agenda to stage a false alien event, that neutralizes their element of surprise and their ability to pull it off. Because it's like a magic trick. Once you know what it is, okay, you know it's them. Now, I will say one thing, a word of caution. That false flag operation began in the late 50s and 60s with abductions and mutilations. It isn't something, it's not a singular event. We're already 60 years into, unfortunately, the false flag operations. Now, what people mean when they ask what you just did is some singular event
Yeah.
where they stage an attack or some event using human tech and make it look alien. Yes. Now, I will tell you that those systems have been fully operational since the mid to late 1960s. So let me unpack that a bit. In 1997, the Disclosure Project, when it was still called Project Starlight, now everyone's ripped off my term disclosure, the New York Times, Steven Spielberg, every kook out there. But it was called Project Starlight, and it was a code name that the man who set up the meeting for the CI director started using. So for a few years, from the 93 until 98, about 5 years there, it was Project Starlight. And in 97, we gathered together offsite, members of Congress and a whole group of whistleblowers and military people. One of them had been on an interagency team in the 70s, early 70s, where they had already the plans and the tech in place to hit a button and the skies would be filled with man-made UFOs hitting targets looking like an alien invasion. Now, he said that system that he was read into and was part of existed before he got there in 73 or 4.
Yeah.
So we know this capability is fully operational right now. Now, one of the things that happened that night, we need to do a movie about this. That night, some spooks, some intel operatives came to the hotel where we were staying in Georgetown, there at the Westin, I believe it was. And they took him from his room voluntarily. They said, please don't say this to the members of Congress yet. We're trying to get this fixed, right? Now, that was 97, 29 years ago in April. It was April 1997.
Yeah.
And he left he left a note under my assistant's door that said, I've been asked not to discuss this yet. Please give us more time. We're going to work on this. Now, I have his name, contact information, everything. The issue is, if we don't stand down, now, knowledge is power.
Yeah.
So the information I'm sharing with you in much more detail has been given to Congress and the oversight committees and the president, the White House, and we're going to get it to the Secretary of War. Now, will anyone do anything about it? I don't know, because this gets into how much courage do you have? Let me bottom line this for your listeners.
Thank you. And examples.
Here's an example. Every administration and person I've dealt with in government at a high level, they get to the edge of this cliff.
Yeah.
And they decide, hey, Thelma, are we going over this? Are we jumping off? Because it's scary. Now, here's a very accurate description of in the real my world that no one would want to inhabit. In 1997, after these congressional briefings, I had been asked to go to the Pentagon to brief the head of intelligence for the Joint Chiefs of Staff, J2. This is the guy who puts together the intelligence briefing for the Joint Chiefs of Staff of the United States Pentagon. And we had gotten him information before the meeting, and he had discovered through a code numbered and code named document I had that we sent to him one of these compartmented illegal operations, and he contacted them. And he was able to confirm we have these technologies, but he was threatened. He was personally threatened, and they threatened, and his name is Admiral Tom Wilson. This leaked out into the public a few years ago. But I was the briefer. I was doing the stand-up briefing. I had astronaut Edgar Mitchell with me and some other people. But what he told me at the end of the meeting when I said, can you help us? He said, no, look, you've already given this to the president, and he was shot down. The CIA director, the Secretary of Defense over me at that time, for Clinton, William Cohen, Bill Cohen, was threatened.
Yeah.
And he says, what I have learned is that the best thing I have is a B-2 stealth bomber. This is 97.
Yeah.
And I have learned that there's a covert program that does not respond to the chain of command, that have technologies that can do circles. He did this, can do circles around my B-2 stealth. I said, yes, sir. So he says, well, it's checkmate. And I said, no, it's not. He says, I'm out. So now take that one little story. I'm shortening it, of course, for interest of time, and multiply that hundreds of times around the world with people I've met with in government. This is the question. And one of the questions I put to members of Congress, people in the Senate, and to people very close to the president, do they have the courage to see this through or not? Given the fact that there is a cabal of vicious people who don't mind killing presidents. We know John F. Kennedy was killed over this, and so was Robert Kennedy.
Hold on.
Fact,
can you
for a fact?
Can you share more about that
over
please?
This issue? Oh, we know for a fact that the President Kennedy and then later in '68, Robert Kennedy, a month before he was killed, he wrote a letter that I have from him to a UFO researcher saying that he was going to deal with this and he knew how important it was. And of course, then he won the California primary and he was shot right then and there. That was an assassination through a cutout.
Yeah.
Kennedy, the President Kennedy was killed that way. And when I spoke to Robert Kennedy Jr., he told me he knew that his father and his uncle were both killed over this issue. So this is a very serious problem. And I know there are some senior people in government right now that are afraid for their lives if they push this too far.
Yeah.
Now, I think this gets into something that people aren't comfortable hearing. And that is when the day is done, you have to have there are three things you need.
Yeah.
You need enough intelligence, both yourself, but information. You need enough integrity not to be blackmailed or respond to threats or inducements or bribes and all this stuff, which I've had thrown at me over the years.
You said
but then
$2
you have to have the
billion.
courage. Yeah. But you have to have enough courage to do the right thing. That's where the ball gets dropped. Because ultimately it is a David and Goliath story.
Yeah.
Because, and this is something that this friend of the president, I was on his podcast, and he said, oh no, the president's the most powerful man in the world. I said, well, theoretically, but only if he uses that power to take on this other organization that is metastasized like a cancer all over the world. The other issue is, can you do that without selling yourself out?
Yeah.
Because, it's ugly, but like the Epstein files, The Epstein files was just a intelligence community honeypot to get dirt on powerful civilians, business people, billionaires, and government leaders so they can be blackmailed. Now, I know for a fact there are some people in the U.S. government intelligence system that they have those blackmail files on. I know who they are, and I know who's blackmailing them. That's all I'm going to say.
Wow.
But yeah, I do. This is dangerous stuff. But that's how you control people, either through a blackmail or a bribe or both. Usually, you get both.
Yeah.
So in '92, I had all this run at me, and the head of Army Intelligence offered me $2 billion if I would be quiet and become part of his team, because he wanted me part of his psionic team as a medical doctor,
Yeah.
but and then also to be an asset that they could control. I said, no, I'm not interested in your money, and I will not succumb to your authority. So I'm one of these people who is, I guess, like a spirit warrior. You can't buy me off, you can't threaten me, and until you put me in the ground. And you know what I told him?
What?
Go ahead and kill me. I'll be 10 times more trouble from the other dimension. You watch. And he knew. No, everyone laughs when they hear that. But this guy knew about that. He knew the power of that.
Yeah.
So I said, yeah, go ahead. It's like Clint Eastwood, make my day. You want to kill me? Fine. Now, I'm very cavalier about it because I've lived this life for too damn long.
Yeah.
But now that's an interesting movie to make sometime. Is this crazy story? I mean, this is batshit crazy, but it's all true. Every word I'm telling you is true. But imagine if you're in the Oval Office or you're the people around him and you're his advisors or a senior senator, and you at first are curious about this, then you have this oh my God moment where you realize it's true. And then you start thinking, what am I going to do about it?
Yeah.
And what you're going to go up against, right? So this gets to be ultimately, even if you gain all the information, intelligence, and you have enough integrity not to be blackmailed or bribed and bought off, then the question is, do you have the courage? And courage comes from heart, the French word heart.
Amen.
Do you have the heart and the spirit to do it? Now, the most wonderful people I know and work with are many of my whistleblowers and these military guys who've left the military who are helping us. And these are guys, some of them have had limbs blown off, some of them have had terrible injuries, and they're warriors. And now they know that this is what's at stake.
Yeah.
So ironically, we have such a huge array of diversity of people helping us. There are enlightened people in consciousness, and there are people in military, intelligence, and people in government who are extremely interested and supportive. But the question is, will they take meaningful and wise, decisive action? This is TBD, to be determined. I'm hoping, I'm praying that they do. We're giving them all the tools to do so. But ultimately, this gets back to what I said a moment ago, the choice, our free will. What do we individually and collectively choose to do? But there's security and power and strength in numbers. So one of the things we're trying to do in those systems, in the intelligence and government military community, is to find the people who are of the right consciousness and of the intention and want the best for the country, humanity, the future, to come together and act on this. And at the same time, offer a bit of an olive branch and immunity to the people who could do us great harm if we just go an eye for an eye. Because let me tell you, friends, an eye for an eye when you're dealing with an organization that have these kind of technologies will leave not only the whole world blind, but the whole world dead. So we have to be very careful and wise. I know I'm probably upsetting people with saying some of this. And ironically, as I said that, my clock just turned to 9/11. But I think weird on the East Coast here. But I'm just saying that we have to figure out how to do this wisely. We want to do it non-violently, of course, and we want to do it in a way that comes to the best possible outcome for the Earth and all of humanity and our future, but also for our extraterrestrial civilizations out there. We don't want them to be harmed either, because they're people like we are. They may look different than we do, differently, but they're still people. They're conscious, sentient beings. And they have bodies and they have worlds and they have families. So look, it's a big cosmos out there. And some of them are, vulnerable to us. Some of them are civilizations that never have had a concept of war, and they don't have weapons. And so a civilization like ours that has an uncontrolled, unchecked power, what Eisenhower warned about,
Yeah.
military industrial power, unchecked, it can destroy democracy, can destroy our country. That was his farewell address to the nation in January of 1961 when Jack Kennedy was going to be sworn in. So we have to look at this and say, we have to be wise enough. We have to learn from errors of history. And then we have to make a plan, which we have. And I will tell people, I know it's very politically incorrect to read, but if people will read this, the other one to read that we released recently is a whole disclosure in illustrated history. This is phenomenal. And I don't know if you have it, but it has dozens and dozens of cases, all with named witnesses and whistleblowers of downed extraterrestrial craft, but some man-made craft from people who are on the retrieval teams or people who are military witnesses. And it's artist renditions because nobody's gotten out with those photos yet. I know people have them, and we're working on that. But this actually describes. So in one page of it will be like a big coffee table book that shows the incident, and the other is a description of what happened. And it's 130 pages of this or something. But that will educate people very easily as you flip through it about what do the ET craft look like, what do the man-made ones look like, and where are all these sites where we're hiding this. Now, all of this, including the entire Disclosure Project Intelligence Archive, dpiarchive.com, we have turned over the unredacted version of that to the government, right? All of it. And we said, go for it now, because it lists the entry points at underground covert bases and operational systems.
It's interesting you say underground, and I've got two questions. Then we're hitting CE5 here, so folks, hang in there. We're going to talk about CE5 in just a minute. First off, I've got a bunch of people in the chat who've been hopping up and down about CERN, and it makes me curious about CERN and something you've mentioned before, which is Antarctica. And then I'll take that next question, which also has to do with underground.
Well, I mean, CERN has some covert components to it, but the big action isn't at CERN. It's at the Lockheed Skunk Works. It's in the Mojave Desert. It's deep underground. As far as Antarctica, there have been assets at the South Pole in Antarctica for decades. And as you know from our 2023 National Press Club event, by the way, this May is the 25th anniversary of that. And we're going to do something, stay tuned, in Washington on May 8th and 9th of this year, 25 years. But yeah, those assets have been there for a long time. We know that there is a Raytheon system underneath the South Pole, a mile or so under the ice, that is a very advanced electromagnetic warfare system, both tracking and active. And we know we have one of our whistleblowers who worked there for a year, who has come forward. And it was built by Raytheon, a big defense contractor. So we know that there are assets that are man-made UFOs in these locations as well. It's a big mistake to think that these assets that are man-made are just in the United States or Canada. Not at all. They're all over the world, and we know that they're operating out of Russia, China, Mideast, all over. And I think that there are competing factions within that covert group. So I think that's what people need to understand.
Thank you. So last question before we hit CE5, and I'm a geek about this. I can remember seeing years ago, decades ago, a long time ago, it couldn't have been decades ago, something like Google Earth. I saw, and I swear I saw, and I think it's gone now, pyramids on Mars. And
oh yeah.
And then I've heard you talk about this in this documentary, and it blew my mind about both megaliths on Mars, but also the possibility on the moon, and also the possibility that civilizations still exist underground in one or both of these places.
Well, the moon facilities have been taken over by human assets. All right. So there are ancient structures there,
Mhm.
and there are newer structures there, and there are underground structures on the moon. And that is not a myth. That's a fact. I debriefed people who have been there and are knowledgeable about it. Now, Mars, we know that the images that came back were pixelated out,
Right.
and there were pyramids and obelisks and other objects there. And this head of Army intelligence, when he was trying to recruit me in '92, told me, "Oh yes, and they're underneath the surface of Mars. Mars are extraterrestrial assets that are there." So we know that's true. We also know that what we call the ARV, which is in this book I just showed you, the Alien Reproduction Vehicle, that was a man-made device that was built in the late 50s, early 60s. It had gone all through our solar system then, before we landed on the moon with my uncle's lunar module in '69. So, you kind of like parallel worlds here going on. And so that is true. And if you look at the Earth, there are actually pyramids all over the Earth and in remote areas. And then you have this amazing, I'm going to be in Mexico City
Yeah.
for our event on March 14th, and then Jaime Moson's event on the 15th for this boogosphere, which is this spherical object
Oh,
that
yeah.
we now have carbon dated from 12,560 years ago. And it's an
Conception.
anti-gravity sphere
Yeah.
that's been zipping all around. And so I've been sort of leading the scientific team to analyze this object, and I'm going back there with my team on. We're flying down on the 12th of March. I'll be doing a private event, and if you want to come, in Mexico City on the 14th, and then we'll be doing this big national auditorium that seats 10,000
Yeah.
people with Jaime Mason on the 15th.
So last thing, and then into CE5, just riffing off of the same question. So please forgive me. You've had Elon Musk with, we're going to call it dinosaur technology. Forgive me, everybody. Dinosaur
It is.
technology, who's been aiming at Mars, and then we've been, and then it suddenly shifted. And that all disappeared, and then it was going to be aiming at moon, and then the Artemis suddenly isn't going to the moon. Is there something going on here more than meets the eye?
Yes, because remember, there are two. The space program that everyone hears about is the people who work in it are sincere. They're not part of any conspiracy. They're doing the best they can
Right.
with the tools they have. 1940s era rocket technology souped up with computers. That's what SpaceX is, and all these others. Now, the ones that are very advanced tech, they don't want the public to know about, and that those operations have been going on sub rosa, covertly, as I mentioned, from at least the late '50s, early '60s to now. So I think that now that it's been decided that this issue should be disclosed, they're a little bit concerned about trying to throw hundreds of billions of dollars in a dinosaur era project. And I think this is beginning to be rethought. About a year
Yeah.
ago, Mr. Musk claimed that what he had at SpaceX was better than anything at the Lockheed Skunk Works or Northrop Grumman. And I had to address that publicly and also for the president. And you'll notice after I did so, he had a falling out, and the administrator of NASA that was handpicked by Mr. Musk
Yeah.
was pulled back on a Sunday, the day before his confirmation, because I said, no, this is not honest. So look, this is very dynamic what we're doing, and of course fraught with peril. But I think that people need to understand that there are going to be a lot of people trying to jockey
Yeah.
for a position as all this comes out. But also there are a lot of people on this old ship of covert programs who are trying to jump over here now to the right side. And I've dealt with some Delta Force people and others who've been pulled into those programs who've said, Dr. Greer, thank you for what you're doing for those of us stuck on the other side, meaning on the illegal Black Project side. So most of those guys, they're actually very good people, believe it or not. We demonize. They're not. They're good people. But they were brought up as kids, as 18, 20, 21 years old, into those programs thinking they were legal. And they go up high enough. Now they're in their 40s and 50s going, oh my God, what am I in? But you can't get out then.
Yeah.
Not alive. So that's where we're trying to create a path for those people to leave those programs, come over to the legal operations, and then kind of wind down that 60, 70 years of criminal operations. That's what I do in my part-time. Now, my real passion is CE5. My CE5 effort is really what got me going here. And, when I first had that experience of contacting the ETs directly in 1973 when I was 18, and we created, I'll just put this out there, we created the CE5 contact protocols together when I was on the ship with a whole group of diverse ETs from various star systems.
Can you back up? What happened? How did this take place at 18?
Well, that's a 2-hour story, but I mean, essentially, I have a book called Hidden Truths, Forbidden Knowledge that tells that whole thing. Again, I know people don't like to read. It's so sad. We don't read anymore or do math. Anyway, I digress. I know I'm joking. I'm only half joking. I'm a tough professor. Go ask my daughters. Anyway, but I think that happened because 6 months earlier I died and had a near-death experience. And I was raised an atheist or agnostic. But I went into full unity cosmic consciousness when I died. And it was beautiful. And then on my 18th birthday, I began to learn how to meditate using a Vedic mantra type of meditation. Now remember, this is 1973. And then in October of 73, I was up in the mountains of North Carolina meditating. And just before sunset, an hour or so before, there was a UFO that was ET crap that I had seen when I was 8 years old in the sky outside Charlotte, North Carolina. Boom, appeared right there. And I said, oh, hi, we were back. I didn't think anything about it. Meditated, went into this deep state of samadhi. And when I came out of it, I opened my eyes, and it had been a long meditation. And you could see the whole Milky Way above my head. And I was told, a thought was sent to me, behold, what a beautiful universe God has made. And with that, I went bang, right back into that near-death experience. But in that Brahman, cosmic state of consciousness. And then I saw this, what looked like a deer. It's hard to describe. It like the eyes of a deer, but on hind legs. And I go, why is that deer walking over towards me? Now, remember, I'm an 18-year-old boy, and I'm going, It comes over and touches me on the shoulder. And I literally dematerialize off the mountain onto this craft for several hours. And that's how the CE5 contact protocols were created by me with the ETs in October of 1973. Ironically, during the Yom Kippur War, which everyone thought could go to nuclear war. And now we're in this war that people are concerned may go to nuclear. So there's some strange coincidences of timelines happening. But now, at 18, I didn't know what in the world I would do with that knowledge, right? What am I going to do? And it took a while. So in 1990, I started Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind initiative, CE5 initiative with CE5 Contact, and started training people all over the world. Now we have thousands, hundreds of thousands of people doing it. This film, CE5 Contact, is to get people up to speed on what really happens and how we do it. The app, the CE5 Contact app, is how you really get trained. Or better yet, I'm going to do an event here in the mountains of Virginia in May. Now, only 20 people can come, but we'll do it as a small group, and we have 684 acres we can go up on. But the daytime, we're going to be spent telling everyone in the world who wants to know the whole story of what's happened.
Dates,
from when
please.
It's on our website, drstephengreer.com. I think it's May it's that last week of May. It's whole 6 days together. And we'll also be streaming it, webinaring it, even from outside. And then in July, there's a mountain near here that we can hold 350 people that we're going to do a group meditation at CE5 Friday, Saturday, Sunday that I hope people will come to. It'll be so much fun. And that's happening. And that will be webinar too. Now, the event during the day, it's mainly going to be me providing sort of a peek behind the curtain of disclosure.
Yeah.
How did this happen? And the genesis of Disclosure Project was a CE5 event in 1992.
Wow.
We were on a beach in
Yep.
Florida. It was 60 people. We were doing the meditation and the contact protocols, and 4 ET craft materialized in the sky right there. And we didn't have good cameras then. I don't operate cameras, but we got a video of it, and one good photograph ended up being taken, then ended up on the front page of the Pensacola paper. And then that's when the head of Army Intelligence surfaced and said, "What the hell are you doing?" And then other people, friendly people from the intelligence and military community, including naval intelligence, approached me. And that's how I got dragged into doing disclosure. So it was a CE5 event that instigated, or was the causative reason behind the entire global disclosure movement that's happened. And so I tell people this is foundational for us, and it's my great love. My great love is the earth, space, consciousness, human consciousness being one with cosmic awareness, and this future. It's like our vision of a world that the wars have ended, the poverty has ended, scarcity has ended, abundance is there. We have free energy, and we have a completely new civilization, which, by the way, we were supposed to have had a long time ago. All right. So that is our birthright as humans, and it's time for us to seize it. It won't be given to us. We have to work for it.
Thank you. What more can you tell us as we start to wind this down? What more can you start to tell us about CE5, about how we do this, about what this is? And I know there was a question earlier in the chat saying, "I'm not good at meditation. Am I still going to be able to reach out?"
Oh, yes. Because the thing is about being good at meditation is a myth. If you think, you're meditating. If you're aware, you can be aware of the awareness. So baby steps again. It's really easy. You can literally sit and close your eyes and watch your breath, but then shift from watching the breath to being aware of the mind that is watching.
Yeah.
So you go from what the object of perception is,
Yeah.
a thing, a breath, a word, my voice, to the faculty of awareness, pure awareness. And then you just see it more and more deeply and go into that quiet, calm space. So I teach various techniques. If you come with me out in the mountains here, I'll go through a whole thing of training people. But I think that the app goes through the whole training process as well, and the meditations. So I think people think meditation means that the meditation is a process. And in the process, you always go into the experience of consciousness. Now, do you go into the highest level right off? Maybe. The first time I sat to meditate after I died, I went into samadhi because I had already been there. And the teacher was going, "What the F?" He didn't quite say that, but he go, "You transcended." I said, "Yeah, I did. Wasn't I supposed to?" Now, I was a young boy. I just turned 18 that day, and I didn't know you were supposed to make a whole drama about it, and lay on a bed of nails or something. So it's actually very easy. And I think what people make it complicated and difficult because we don't believe in ourselves enough. We don't realize that it's the saying is, it's closer to us than our life's vein. The fact that we're conscious, all you have to do is be aware of awareness. It's so simple. And then you're there. And I know it sounds abstract, but it isn't. And I tell people there are many, many thousands of ways to get to that place of the placeless, the deep, quiet mind. Whatever works for you is great. I teach a few techniques that I know have worked, but I always tell people, take whatever I share and make it your own. I'm not at all chauvinistic or egotistic about it. I mean, I think people realize this is the problem with gurus and religions and cults, is that they want to say my way or the highway. No, every human being is a unique creation. Everyone's going to find their own path. But what we can do as teachers and share with each other is what we know works for a lot of people. And then I say, make it your own. The key thing is to believe you can do it. if you have this little gremlin on your shoulder going, I can't do it, I can't do it, I can't do it, you're not. But if you affirm a positive affirmation that says, I can do it, I'm a conscious being, deep within me is the entirety of the infinite mind. If you say that to yourself and know it, you'll have it.
Thank you. A few last questions. Speaking
Yeah.
of positive and positive affirmations, are
Mm-hmm.
you hopeful that humanity will make it through this time period? Do you have any guess or hint or clue, remote viewing, that we are choosing that? And how is important is it everybody watching? There are thousands and thousands of watching it. Maybe we'll have hundreds of thousands by the time this is finished its airing life.
Right. Well, here's the thing. If we believe it will happen, it will.
Yeah.
So we need to see it and make it real. But our actions and our words matter as well. So it's bringing heaven and earth together. And what I see, in fact, is that we will make it to this promised land of a new world and a new future. But how difficult it is or how smooth,
Yeah.
it's our choice. It's our choice. Now, I would say to people, it could be the Phoenix scenario where we rise up out of the ashes.
Oh God.
All right, or it could be something not so draconian and difficult. But really, this is our individual and collective will. And this is why I keep saying actions speak louder than words. Do the CE5 contact protocol together with people of like coherent mind, and you'll be amazed at what happens. But by virtue of you doing it, it propagates through the field of consciousness to everyone on the planet. That's the nature of conscious non-locality. And so if you know that, then
Yeah.
even the act of doing it is beneficial to the world and to humanity. And then, the more you can study this, and I tell people, get the app, watch this film, learn how to do it, and then experiment with it. And go out with you don't have to have 300 people. You can do it with 3 or 4 like-minded people and go out under the night sky. You can do it in your living room in the rain if you have to.
Yeah.
But go out in a place that's peaceful, be in the meditative state. I always start it with a puja. So you'll see in the app, there's a whole chanting of the Sanskrit, Vedic puja. And I teach the meditation, and then we go into meditation. And then we go into the CE5 protocols, which is to see and sense remote places. And if we lock on, if we feel it in our heart or see it in our mind, then we sort of like Google Earth Zoom. We kind of like guide them in to where we're located. And we do it very precisely. And we were out there 4, 5, 6 hours at night doing this. And I will tell you, I have never done this with a group in 36 years since 1990 where ETs have not shown up. Never, not once.
So people are saying, what's the movie? Where can I find it? How can I get this? Where do I go?
Right. Well, it's on Amazon and Apple now, those platforms, and it's called CE5 the new frontier of contact. And the app is just simply called CE5 Contact on the app stores. So they kind of go together. And it's fun to watch. It'll sort of blow your mind. And then, get the app and go out and do it. One thing, make it fun. People get very serious. And I deal with serious things, but girl, I know how to party hardy. And, I know I'm a bit of a wild man. It's funny, the
This
day
we
after the
started with
main
free
night.
yourself, free your
Yeah,
mind.
free your mind. So the day, what's fun is that the day after the May 9th, 25th anniversary in Washington, D.C.,
Yeah.
of the launch of the global disclosure movement 25 years ago, that next day on the 10th outside D.C., I'm going to be with the heavy metal rock band Godsmacked and Stone Temple Pilots. That will be backstage partying. Anyway, it'll be fun. Y'all come. But I try to have fun doing this because you have to.
Thank you. Last couple of questions I've got. Based on the documentary, what in the world is
Yeah.
a neutrino light detector?
Yeah, a neutrino light detector was invented back in the 70s. I met the man who invented it. And it was, he's a genius electronics guy, and he got a national security order that seized it without compensation. And my military advisor had actually been on the board of his company in the Tampa area. And what it is, it picks up the neutrino, the very subtle energy, neutrino light, that when an ET craft is stepping down out of transdimensional space-time, higher frequency, into 3D, there's a scatter of this neutrino light. These satellites pick up on, as does his Raytheon system and now ground-based systems. They lock onto the craft and then try to strike it with an electromagnetic pulse weapon and down it. So the neutrino light detectors were first, put in place back about 50 some years ago that I know of. And I actually met the man who invented it. But people need to realize this is very high-tech stuff, and it can be used for very good purposes, right? Communication, otherwise, but it's being used as a weapon detection system. So the neutrino light detectors are slaved, they call it slaved, or linked to weapon systems. And this is why I know how dangerous the Earth is right now for our friends from other stars, but they're still here with us, and they're always going to be with us.
Thank you. A question that came up from before, a 3I atlas. What's your take?
To my knowledge, and I have nothing to contradict this, is that it's a big meteorite or comet.
It's a rock.
And, and I have no information that's anything but that, although Avi Loeb has made a lot of hay claiming it was something else. And I think this guy, he's made friends with Congresswoman Luna, who is now talking about, the aliens being from the devil and all that, sort of weird belief system. And he's trying to get $1 billion for the planetary defense system. So again, I think this fear mongering is designed to get a lot of money from the government, gullible people in the government and the people through fear.
Yeah.
I see no information otherwise about that. If I had any contradictory information to it just being a comment, I would certainly release it, but I don't have it. And I don't see any indication that it is anything other than what it looks like to be.
Thank you. So people came here tonight for a specific announcement. We covered so much ground. Is there one announcement you want to leave people with tonight?
The announcement is we're not alone in the universe. It's time for us to make peaceful contact, and the secrets are all about to come out. And we have to hope and pray and guide that disclosure. So it's a beautiful event for humanity. And it has to be all of us together, everyone listening, in your thoughts and your prayers and your actions. And so I would say that is the announcement, that the time of the Earth and humanity joining with these other civilizations is at hand.
Sign me up. Woohoo.
Yeah, good.
Thank you so much, Dr. Stephen
Thank
Greer.
you.
I can do my usual, for everyone out there, but just on a personal note, and as somebody who's both had the NDEs and seen stuff that I can't explain, you can. Thank you. Your work is, it's for all of humanity, for all of consciousness. It's huge.
Thank you. Well, it's a labor of love. And I think that it isn't by, a lot of wonderful people helping. And so thank all of you, and thank you, Michael, for what you do and getting the word out and helping us get the word out and spreading the knowledge of peace and of enlightenment and of a beautiful future to everyone in your network.
Thank you so much. So for everyone out there, this is Michael
God
Sandler
bless.
saying, be well, have fun, get CE5, talk with consciousness, talk with the universe, talk with our neighbors, and above and beyond all else, shine bright. Woohoo! Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Good night.
Good night. Lots of love, everyone.
Thank you.